Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and my planty home. So today I'm going to be talking about some planty topics, a planty topic. Plants that, in my opinion, just always look good. You know, there are those beautiful plants, amazing plants out there on social media or I don't know, wherever it is, we see these plants that look amazing. And I know me personally, I've seen plants on Instagram and been like, I want this plant in my house. That is so beautiful. And then realized that it wasn't a plant that just always looked good or grew as beautifully as I saw it online. You know, like those plants that need just a little bit of finessing or a little special treatment for it to grow in a beautiful way. Obviously, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I'm sure maybe, hopefully you guys know those plants that I'm talking about. In every variety of plants, there are going to be beautiful specimens, but not every specimen is beautiful. So I thought today I would talk about some of the plants that don't need any of that finessing, plants that the majority of the plants I've seen in these varieties look beautiful, look amazing, are beautiful specimens in their own way and don't require a lot of that extra finessing. In a lot of cases, I will do whatever those small finessing things are to make them look good, but there are a lot of plants that don't need that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get started. Okay, first up, this is a Philodendron giganteum variegated. I do think this is one of my most overall beautiful plants in my collection. I've got a lot of plants in this household, but this one always, no matter what plant seems to be standing out at the time, this one is definitely up there, like in the running in the back of my mind for most beautiful plant because it just always looks good. Even right now, it is like bone dry down in the root system and the plant still looks amazing. It is a little bit droopy. Even with it being a little bit thirsty, like it still looks so beautiful. The leaves have just such a beautiful texture to them. They get so big and mottled and it just stands out kind of no matter where I put this plant or what plant this ends up neighboring. Is also very forgiving, which I think the name of this video should be like Forgiving Plants, because being forgiving care-wise, I do think is a big way that a lot of these plants end up on this list because they do just look good, even if they're being slightly mistreated in different ways, especially if you're somebody that has lower light in your house. I think this is a great option because actually it seems to grow in more variegated in a lower light setting. And I'm not saying like a no light setting, but it doesn't seem to like high amounts of light really whatsoever. The variegation starts to go away. So yes, amazing, beautiful, so beautiful plant. Like, why don't more people talk about this plant? Yeah. Ah, do you see that? Do you see that? Whew, this is a workout. These plants are big and heavy. Of course, Philodendron Jose Buono had to be in this video. I probably talk about this plant more than any other plant on my channel. What plant do I talk about the most? What plant do you think I talk about the most? This one is definitely like a highlight plant in my mind. It's a plant I think about every single day and how beautiful it is. This Philodendron does stand out from the crowd always. Like, this leaf says it all. I don't even need to speak words because this leaf says it all. Right? But I am gonna say words because I like to talk. That's why I'm here. You can't shut me up. Wow, actually you can, because that is a sexy leaf, right? I will say for the variegation to be like this level, it does need a little bit more light, but you can still end up with some really beautiful variegation in lower light as well. So like these smaller leaves down here were in lower light and the variegation is still really beautiful. But once I moved it to a higher light spot is when I really started to get these super contrasted variegated bits. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that so cool? I think probably the best thing of all about this plant is, yes, right now I do have this living on, like being propped up with a bamboo skewer, but Up until I repotted this plant a couple of months ago, it grew these giant leaves without any like trellis or stake or anything to help it grow. Which a lot of plants do need that to get these really big long leaves, but if you're somebody that doesn't like the look of moss poles or stakes in any way really, like me, then this is a great option for you if you want big sized leaves like this, because the plant will get big sized leaves whether it has the support or not. So yeah, I love it. Compared to those last couple of plants, this is definitely a smaller specimen that I have living in my house, but it is a plant that definitely belongs on this list in my opinion. It is a, what is this called? Something truncata. Why can I not think of the name of this? I know truncata is in the name. Anyway, it's a Thanksgiving cactus. It's so easy, so forgiving, so interesting and kind of weird, but always looks good in my opinion. I've seen ones that are even like a single stem that are so cool looking to me. It's just like the shape of this plant is so structural. It doesn't need like a lot of plant to really make an impact. Plus, on top of that all, it is very forgiving. I like to keep plants in two categories. My plants that care-wise can tolerate a little bit of overwatering, and my plants that can tolerate a little bit of underwatering. Those last two plants fall on the can tolerate overwatering. This plant falls in the can tolerate underwatering more, you know, but it's like a scale. So they all kind of fall in a weird, I'm getting too much into it, but yeah, this plant can tolerate a lot of drought. So if you lean toward the underwatering like care tendency, then this is a great option for you. But yeah, the leaf shape, these little bracts are really cool shaped and they can get really big. This plant is also a bloomer. So at the ends of each of these stems it's gonna start blooming here soon actually. It's a Thanksgiving cactus, so they bloom around Thanksgiving. There's also Christmas cactus, which blooms around like in the winter, and then Easter cactus, which blooms in the springtime. They bloom from each of these stems and it is so beautiful. These plants can live for like 100 years. I've seen some really cool old specimens that are like massive. That just goes to show they can live that long. They can tolerate a lot, and what doesn't kill them makes you stronger. Da, 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 da. When I'm alone. Oh my gosh, it is getting a little bloom bud right there. And right there. Oh yay, it is going to bloom soon. I'm so excited. But what I love outside of the blooms is when it gets new sections, it looks really cool because the new leaves come in really light colored compared to the rest of the plant, and then they darken over time. So like you can see all these light leaves here are the new ones. It is just such a low maintenance plant, but for me, it has like such high payoff. I love this plant. It's a succulent, so it does prefer higher light, but it doesn't necessarily like need that to grow and survive. Really cool, really beautiful plant. I wish it was blooming right now so you could get the full effect, you know. Oh well, soon. Next is my neon pothos. When I was first thinking about this video, I was going to talk about how all pothos just always look good. But then I realized like that's not necessarily true. So there are definitely some varieties that seem to struggle a little bit or are a little more finicky compared to, you know, my neon pothos and my golden pothos, my like tried and trues. The two that I have tried that I would leave out of this category are global green and also Manjula pothos. Those ones tend to look a little bit more rough, less full, less nice looking at any given time. Here I have one of my neon pothos. This is actually a propagation I did, and even though this is like a young, fresh propagated plant, it just looks so good and so full. That's the thing I love about pothos is they will just kind of fill in the space wherever I feel like I need a plant to, you know, like fill it in, make it look a little more jungalo. That is where neon and golden pothos comes in. They are so tough, so forgiving. They can be propagated with ease. They're my favorite plants to propagate. And yeah, they just grow so fast and so nice. Don't really put up a lot of guff like other plants do. Something I love about them is their leaves will all grow like the same direction toward the light, which I think looks really nice in a plant. It's those plants that kind of look like they're facing in a lot of different directions, or like the main focal point of the plant is from a lot of directions that tend to look a little bit awkward and less nice. And pothos just don't really seem to do that. Like even if you like decide to trellis the plant or like, I don't know, string it up around somewhere, it'll look awkward for a little bit, but then over time the leaves will turn toward the light in a way that looks more natural, but not all plants are very good at doing that. So that is something I really appreciate about these plants in particular. Pothos. I'll stop talking about it now because I'm sure we all already know how amazing pothos are. Monstera, duh. Monstera always look good. Even those scraggly, kind of sad Monsteras look so cute. The cool thing about a Monstera is even if it's not a super happy specimen that gets all of the light and all of the water and all the nutrients it needs, those little heart leaves, even if the stems get a little bit etiolated, look so cute. There's just something magical about Monstera, like truly. There's a reason we all got obsessed with plants because we saw beautiful Monstera, you know? That was me anyway. I definitely loved the look of Monstera. Every time I saw a Monstera, I was like, that is so beautiful. And that kind of got me down this spiral. This planty jungalo spiral. They can tolerate low light, they can tolerate high light, they can survive on a little bit of underwatering, but also survive overwaterings. Like I truly do think that Monstera are one of the most forgiving houseplants, especially when it comes to like popular houseplants. Because there are a lot of popular houseplants that people seem to love to look on social media that are like some of the hardest plants I've ever tried to keep. But Monstera definitely is not that. Here's a challenge for you. If you have an Instagram and you have a Monstera that you think looks bad, send me a photo. And like, I don't know, maybe you could change my mind, but I don't think that a Monstera can actually look bad. Of course, unless it's like, you know, a Monstera albo and the node is rotting, the roots are all rotted, the white of the Monstera is like browning or melting back. Of course, that doesn't look good if it's like on the brink, but more often than not, like by far more often than not, they just always look good no matter what. Okay. Oh God. Next, of course, I couldn't do this video and not talk about my Crassula ovata or Jade. I decided to place it down with the dark side of the plant that's not getting very good light facing towards you, to show that even though this side of the plant isn't getting really good light and kind of growing away from what you're looking at, like it still looks good. So let me turn it from every direction, even though, I mean, like this is definitely the best looking side because this is the side that gets the light. It just looks good. I'm very highly attracted to plants that look really sculptural, kind of weird, wonky. If I were to remove a whole bunch of these leaves, the stems would just kind of all be doing their weird things with, you know, little tufts of leaves at the top. And I think even that would look really cool. So something I especially love about the look of this plant that always looks good, that really truly always looks good, is how, oh, there's a word for it. Oh, the corking. Corking is when a succulent, like the base of a succulent or the stem of a succulent will turn like wood, like it'll look like wood or like the bark of a tree. That's called corking. And this is a plant that does that. So if you have a really young plant, the stems are going to be green, like up here. And then as that green stem ages and hardens, it will cork and look like what it does down here. Oh, that leaf looks like a heart. That's so cute. I love that with the corking at the bottom, you can kind of remove a whole bunch of the leaves to reveal that a little bit more, and I guess kind of like bonsai it to give it a more interesting appearance. I'm not any good at that kind of a thing, so I'm gonna leave my leaves on, but if you're somebody that likes to play around and prune, do that kind of thing, bonsai, like this is a really great plant. It does prefer, it's a succulent, so it does prefer higher light, but even if it's not getting like the most ideal light on the planet, it's going to be just fine. Like how this side of the plant, even though it gets like next to no light, it seriously is so dark back here and so bright up here, it still looks really good. So yeah. If you watched this video, you may remember that when I repotted this plant, when I uppotted this plant into this planter, I did have a couple of leaves that sprouted baby plants that propagated just by accident. And I do also have those in my collection right now, and they look really cute. They're just like so small, but they still look so good. So that's what I'm saying. Like this plant just always looks good no matter how small or big or sparse or full, which I think is really cool and something I like am very drawn to in plants. I want it to always look good, even if I'm going through my like struggle months, even if it's winter and I'm neglecting my plants because of seasonal depression. And this checks that box right off. Oh, it's so heavy. Okay. I had to talk about my ponytail palm because I love this plant for a lot of the same reasons as the Jade I just showed you, but yeah, obviously it has a little bit of a different look. So this is this is a ponytail palm. I think probably one of the best features about this plant is it can tolerate some drought, okay, like some serious drought. Hardly watered this sucker all summer and it's doing just fine. There is a little bit of browning on the leaf tips, but that doesn't bother me. But if you're somebody that the brown dry tips bother you, then maybe this isn't like the best option of a good looking plant for you, but it doesn't bother me, so I don't feel the need to like chop those off all the time or do anything special about it. But anyway, it has a very, very cool looking trunk or stem or bulb or whatever this is that just gets bigger and bigger over time. And yeah, it has a really interesting pattern on it. Like because the hair of this ponytail palm is so long and full, you don't get like the full impact of that all the time, but I do enjoy, you know, taking that in every time I water because I think it looks really cool. There's something so satisfying to me about it. And over the years, I have been able to see a size difference in this bottom part of the plant. I don't know what it's called, but the bottom like bulbous part of the plant, that it has gotten bigger over time. Of course, as it's gotten bigger and is able to store more and more water down there, it has pushed out more and more of the hair or leaves, which in this case, I don't know if all ponytail palms are curly, but the leaves come out curly. It's so beautiful. I wish I could get my hair to look this nice. They look really cute and cool when they're small, but especially, oh my gosh, especially when these plants are big, they are so cool looking and stand out so much in homes that have more mature sizes of these. So that is something I'm really looking forward to with this plant. And that's why I think I needed to have it on this list, because it looks good now, but it's only going to look better over time. I don't worry about this plant surviving at all because I know it can tolerate kind of whatever I throw at it. Next, aloe vera, another very sculptural looking plant. I'm someone that loves the succulent look, the like pokey, spiky, kind of menacing looking plants, and this is that. This is that. These are not the most forgiving plant. Well, in a way, yes, in a way, no. In the no way, they can rot out pretty easily, but they're also very forgiving because you really can just take the top of the plant off, like just rip it off, pot that into some soil, and you'll get a new plant. In fact, that's what I did with this one because I did accidentally underwater like the main full plant that I took this top piece from. Yeah, I underwatered it, which is really hard to do with aloe, but yeah, I mean, it's done fine. It's been a year since that happened, and the plant is growing in really thick and juicy. It has the most beautiful, like, bluish green kind of gray color. Oh, I love it. It also has this little baby here. So I think it's a really good looking plant. And again, one that looks good anywhere. Aloe is a plant that I've kind of always overlooked a little bit. Since it is a basic plant, I guess I just like kind of forgot about it. And especially when it was mixed in with just like a sea of plants, I never really paid any extra attention to it because in my sea of plants, it wasn't the one that really stood out. But if you can keep your plant just like a little bit pulled away from other plants, it makes such a freaking statement. It stands out so much. This is like one of the first plants, if you walk into my living room, probably the first plant that's really going to draw your eye because it is just so like stark. It stands out. It looks so different from the bunch. So that is why I had to include aloe vera on this list. And I'm just now realizing that pretty much all of the plants that I'm including in this video, I talked about in my favorite plants video of the whole year. So sorry, we're like getting a little bit redundant here, but it's true. I just think it's such a beautiful plant and very forgiving. Always, always looks good. I had to throw it in here. I'm so sorry. Is this like the most redundant video ever? Probably. The last plants I'm going to include on this list are Dracaena. Oh, I'll also do an honorable mention actually. But anyway, the last plant I'm including on this list is my Dracaena. I have two Dracaenas in my collection. My Dracaena marginata, which is the big one in my living room, and then also a Dracaena reflexa, which is down in my office. It's a lot smaller. It's so tiny, but that just goes to show that Dracaena look good no matter what size they are. These are such cool, again, kind of sculptural looking plants, especially as they get bigger. Love my marginata so much. It's been a really great addition to my plant collection and my planty home. Again, just really makes a statement. And I think it's beautiful. It always looks good. Even when this plant got spider mites and dropped a whole bunch of its leaves, it looked good. It was really bare and sparse, but the more bare and sparse it was, the more I could see the like twisty, curvy stems growing everywhere and how really, and it really just looked even more shapely, more sculptural. I know I keep using that word. It's irking me how much I'm using that word, but that's just like the only word I can think of to explain it because it is like the twisting stems every direction is so interesting to look at. And yeah, I mean, it looks really, really good like that, but it also looks really good as the leaves grow in and looks more and is more full of a plant. So I freaking love this one. And also, like, again, very tolerant both ways. I personally like to lean more toward underwatering than overwatering. It can survive. It is going to push through. What I love about the Reflexa down in my office is the color. The color of this is just so freaking vibrant yellow. I love it. I'm excited for 10 years from now when this plant gets as big as this plant. That'll be really cool to see what it turns into, but it is just such a vibrant, bright plant, and the vines really grow in like such interesting ways, like, or the vines, the stems grow so weirdly, and I love it. It's kind of wonky, but in a really cool way. So I'm excited to see what this plant turns into. I had to talk about my Sansevieria, so these are going to be an honorable mention, but Sansevieria, I have really, it's kind of weird because I started out loving Sansevieria, and then as my plant obsession kind of progressed, I got more toward tropicals, and I find myself gravitating more toward the succulents, the desert plants again. They're just so cool and low maintenance and unique looking, and I think Sansevieria are so beautiful. They are the perfect plants. I don't so much love the, like, I don't know what they're called, the more upright, like mother-in-law tongues one. I more like the, like, I don't know, I call them like tower ones. They just grow up, but they have a lot of leaves that grow up with like all together instead of just like one leaf at a time growing really tall. I really love the looks of these more towering ones. This one is kind of like twisty. Obviously there are so many varieties out there, so it kind of is like up in the air what Sansevierias you're going to be able to find, but overall I love, is that a bloom? Is that about to bloom? Is that going to be a bloom? Oh my gosh, I hope it's a bloom. Maybe it's just little leaves though, I don't know. I'll keep you posted. Anyway, I love the way these look. These are another where, okay, usually you just buy these kinds of Sansevieria as smaller plants. They can get pretty expensive for the larger ones because they grow more slowly than other like tropical plants. They just grow more slowly, which is why bigger specimens are quite expensive. So usually you'll see them more in this kind of a size, and then which makes them like the perfect accent plant to kind of squeeze anywhere. If you're listening to a low lights plant list video, usually Sansevieria are on those lists. It's pretty uncommon for them to be left off, but it's true. Sansevieria can tolerate a lot, like so much, both ways, every way. They are so tolerant, and even if you make a mistake with them, like for example, I don't have it out here, but I have one out on my IKEA shelf that I rotted the roots of, just not giving up on it and giving it just like a little tiny extra attention to make sure I'm not overwatering it. The plant is growing back, the roots are growing back, and all's well that ends well, you know? So I love plants that are forgiving that way, that yeah, it'll let me know if I've made a mistake, but it's not so unforgiving that the whole plant is going to die because of that one mistake, you know? And they do just look so beautiful. They are so shapely, so cool. Like, that is so cool, right? I need to up pot this one. It's getting a little bit too big for this planter. I love the way they look. And I also, the other thing that I think makes them really beautiful is the fact that they pop out pups. Like little baby plants, and it can really fill in a pot and just, I don't know, make it look that much better, you know, make it really stand out and look full. So I love that. I love Sansevieria. I've definitely become a bit of a Sansevieria collector. So if you have any Sansevieria that you're obsessed with, that you think I would love to have in my collection, that's this more like towering type Sansevieria, I would love to hear your recommendations. But yeah, I do. I love Sansevieria. I think they're so beautiful. They're so easy, so forgiving, just an all around fun plant. So I had to include them in this list. Even though it was a little bit of an afterthought, I think because they are so small, sometimes I kind of forget about them, but not in a bad way, in a good way, because they don't stress me out. They're not at the top of my mind all the time. You know what I'm saying? Those are all the plants I'm going to talk about today. Let me know what you thought of my picks. And if you have any plants to add to the plants that always look good list, they're also like forgiving list, please leave a comment. I love reading through the comments of videos like this. It's always super insightful and helpful in deciding which plants I want to add to my collection going forward. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that and for watching this video all the way through. That is going to be it from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!